another interesting episode of Conversations at Foothills by ISRA. How do you see the impact of US-Iran crisis on global market economy?
The impact is now becoming visible. The predictions are that global economy can shrink up to 14% because of this conflict. Pakistan needs to rapidly and quickly change its mindset from a state-centric approach to a market-centric approach.
Do you think that the current crisis is hurting China?
China will remain strong and China will indirectly keep on helping Iran in terms of technology acquisition, in terms of food security or something. Pakistan is uniquely placed here. We don't want to be seen as a proxy of China, but we can develop a regional partnerships using our relationship with China. If you put a professional case looking at sanctions to complete the Iran-Pakistan pipeline. If Iran opens up tomorrow, maybe certain trade sanctions are lifted. Pakistan can actually use Gwadar to reach out to Central Asia through Turkmenistan. At the end of the day, history will remember if Pakistan managed to use this opportunity for a people-centric economic policy.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Dr. Mayim Fatima, speaking to you yet again from another interesting episode of Conversations at Foothills, organized by ISRA. We are very grateful to Mr. Haroon Sharif.
Pleasure to be here with you.
How do you see the impact of US-Iran crisis on global market economy?
The question is actually everywhere at the moment. Any prolonged conflict of this magnitude, has multiple impacts, on various economies. This is probably, in fact, most definitely is the biggest economic shock after COVID, which world has seen. It's a disruption. It is basically uncertainty. Investors do not take longer positions when things get uncertain. Markets liquidity is dying because lots of petrodollars and money which was floating in global financial markets. So I'll try and systematically answer this question. So the first impact of this war, because the Strait of Hormuz is a passage not only of almost 25% of global petroleum products, it is also a trade passage for very vital things like urea and fertilizers, which has a link with food security.
Exactly.
So the impact is now becoming visible. The prices not only in the region, but prices in the US, for instance, the gas prices have gone up to $4, which is around 20% increase in what they were paying before, right? Europe was already struggling with the energy crisis due to the Ukraine war.
Yes.
This has coupled it.
Exactly.
And according to the IMF numbers, the most hurt economy in Europe is the UK, actually, where inflation is going up, interest rates are going up, mortgage prices are going up, consumption power is eroding, Second impact on the global economy, we look at markets in two angles. One are oil markets. Oil markets are the most unpredictable, and the longer it goes, that will hurt people quite seriously. Because when it started, so the global oil prices were averaging around $75 to $80 per barrel. Shot up all the way up to $126, $130. Settled down a bit, now again on the rise. Now, this fluctuation is not letting large businesses and economies plan. It is increasing the energy cost and cost of doing business because lots of businesses are developed on energy, oil-related products. It is increasing the food security costs. So on the oil market, nobody can predict where will it go. As a consequence, the rates of shipping, the rates of, the
Transportation.
jet fuel, the air travel, basically the tourism as a whole, particularly in Middle East, it has really taken a sharp
It has
nosedive.
gone down.
So you can't really, so if I take it, what does it mean in terms of numbers? The predictions are that global economy can shrink up to 14% because of this conflict. And this I'm looking at referencing to studies done by IMF, studies done by eminent universities, studies done by Bloomberg and others. Some economies more, some less, but it's an average. Now, a 14% decline in a global economy which was already struggling to recover from COVID is a bad news.
Exactly.
You know, second is financial markets. Now, financial markets, Pakistan has little dependence on global financial markets. But in terms of people need to understand that massive liquidity is buying and selling of bonds and shares and stocks. So the Standard and Poor index, for instance, has fallen down by 5%. Now, one of the key reasons is that most of the Gulf money through fund managers in the West was being used to invest in stocks and bonds and stuff. So basically, the liquidity has shrunk because the production of oil in Gulf countries has gone down. These are some major impacts on that. But I think as a development economist, the serious impact is the erosion of consumption power of middle class and lower middle class, and basically the disruptions in trade and the fear of shortages. Fear of shortages actually creates more uncertainty, more social unrest. And these are the things, if this war does not take a positive settlement shape, I'm afraid the impact could be much deep rooted to repair in short term.
Since my second question for you was that what is the overall impact on the region and our economy in Pakistan specifically? And maybe I will also request you to kindly touch upon how it is going to impact the Indian economy. Though India is quite allied with Israel and also it is aligned with US. So how does it take the brunt of that? Choke points being blockaded by Iran and also now US. So how do you see that?
Very quickly, when the global, now these days, each economy is interdependent. You can't really say that I'm insulated from
Exactly.
any global upheaval.
It's an era of global interdependence.
It's an
And that's a
interdependence
theory that we study
in,
in
in
politics.
terms of globalization, but we must understand that because of the events of history in the recent history, globalization is gradually shifting towards regionalism because the global multilateral system has failed to give governance solutions, financial solutions, and other things. And one of the major thing which not people talk about is actually demise of multilateralism. This war has bypassed the multilateral system. We don't see United Nations here.
Exactly.
We don't see Bretton Woods playing any role. We don't see WTO looking at trade. It's unilateral tariffs.
New alliances are being
So
shaped.
new bilateral alliances,
Exactly.
not multilateral. That's dangerous because then you are hostage to certain political and vested interests, not a shared
Collective
consensus,
interest of
collective
the
interest of
humanity.
humanity.
Yeah.
This is a big casualty of this war, which I see. Coming to the region basically, if I define in three areas, the GCC countries, South and West Asia, and then Central Asia and China and others. But GCC economies are almost 70 to 80% dependent on oil trade. So saying that they are rich people and others, they are like, according to a UNDP report, they are likely to get a hit of 30% decline in their GDP.
Hmm.
Not because that they don't have the endowment. It is at the moment, the production facilities have gone down. LNG plants in Qatar are closed.
Exactly.
But also the prices have gone up and the buyers are reluctant to take longer term contract. Pakistan has also moved from what we call, it's a little technical jargon, but it is what we call as futures contract. that you book oil products for the next year or so.
Exactly.
Now we are dealing on spot because prices are changing
Day-to-day
on
basis.
day-to-day basis.
That is something
Now-
that I can
Now
understand as
that
well.
that is an impact on GCC because they can't really book their oil for longer term, so their production is dependent on that.
So their business has taken a brunt.
That has done. UAE and other smaller Emirates are going to have bigger impact. Saudi Arabia is a bigger country. They have other things they can try and absorb more. But the smaller Emirates like Bahrain and UAE and Kuwait, because their dependence was purely on one or two things, there is a false understanding, for instance, for Pakistanis and others that Dubai is, sustainable. It was being sustained through sport of Abu Dhabi, which is the oil producing state. Dubai's infrastructure only covers 40% of the cost. It's a very expensive infrastructure. Now there is a shock, and the safe haven concept has been shattered. It will take them time to reposition themselves.
Yeah.
So the Gulf,
Would it be okay if I call it an artificial economy?
in any case, all oil producing economies are not organic economies because they are single product led and natural endowment led economies, not developed through the theories of economics, which is human capital and technology and labor, all together.
They don't have the
had
human
They
capital.
had an endowment and they cashed on it and they developed a decent governance model. So region to GCC political cracks are already emerging. You already saw UAE leaving OPEC.
Yeah.
Now, how would that translate into? I think there are three things they will do, and then I'll stop on the region. They will do basically economic diversification in future. They will try and reduce some of their dependence on US and the West because they only invest there. They would look at bigger markets like Pakistan and India and others to start doing trading and stuff. And you never know if Iran opens up tomorrow. So there could be some opportunity. That's Middle East. Pakistan has big reliance of Middle East for a variety of things.
Remittances.
We have our lots of workforce working there who send back remittances. We export a lot to Middle East. Actually, UAE is one of our large trading partners. We also do trading by using their ports as transit, what we call in technical terms transshipments.
That is now shifted to Pakistan.
Yeah, I'll come
during
to
the
that.
war.
No, but this is our dependence, So the port of Salalah in Oman is being used, and ports in UAE are being used for that. So, and then we have historic and cultural and other ties, with that. I do see, because of slowdown in their economy, when economies slow down, the first pressure comes on expatriates. So Pakistan, we were aiming to send another 1 million boys and girls for jobs there. I think that is now, for the near future, is not possible.
It is not happening.
Similarly, I think our export will get a hit for these reasons. Our remittances will go down. It will have a macroeconomic impact. Rising import bill through oil prices, decline in inflows of remittance and exports. So we will actually have more pressure on rupee, foreign exchange, because of that widening gap in future. We are trying to fill it through deposits and other things, but we need to have sustainable way in economics says that our exports should pick up and foreign direct investment should come in to match our import bill. Coming couple of comments on India basically and the wider region. Strait of Hormuz has been a main, source of supply of petroleum and things. India being a large economy, not in an IMF program, having larger foreign exchange reserves, is so far trying to absorb the shock and not passing on the prices to people the way we are doing.
Exactly.
But key question is, for how long? Japan, for instance, was importing and using Strait of Hormuz as well. So I see impact on Indian economy, impact on Japanese economy, and I wouldn't, exclude Chinese economy. They are wise. They have over 100 days of reserves. But in a prolonged conflict, they are bound to, slow down certain projects, certain things in anticipation of the worst. So these economies, the bigger impact is that global growth was dependent on Asia, almost half of Asia's performance, because it's the century of Asia. If Asia slows down, global growth will also slow down. Couple of things on Pakistan. On Pakistan, I've already given the macro picture, but at the micro level, I think Pakistan needs to very quickly look at, we already have a huge number of poor people, almost 70 million. For that, we have an institutional arrangement through BISP. For middle class and lower middle class, we have no institutional structure to support them. I think we need to put few mega projects and investments of the state on hold, create a fund for middle class support, because they are the backbone of your professional inputs. Keep the minimum business continuity going. That's my first, main thing.
And the middle class takes the hit.
They have taken the hit. There are trade-offs, like there are social trade-offs. Like our consumption power has eroded. Should we invest on health and education? Should we invest on food? Should we invest on houses? Because you can't do all now.
Exactly.
And transport is becoming expensive. So I think we need drastic changes in our policy mindset to accommodate a large middle class, almost 100 million people, how to keep them afloat. That is the impact on Pakistan. But I'll come in the end that what is the impact on Pakistan's trade and what is the opportunity. We'll go into it a little bit afterwards. The bigger context is that certain countries have used the geopolitical space for developing their real sectors. East Asia did it. They built an export base. They picked up winners, put resources behind. At that time, they were needed by the West and the US for Cold War purposes. They asked them to open up markets, and they started supplying things and built a real export-based economy. Pakistan has had these positions 3-4 times in the past 30 years. Was it Cold War? Was it Afghan War? Was it 9/11? And later on. But we have failed to negotiate that kind of deal for Pakistan. Mostly we have opted for these deposits. Mostly we have opted for some aid. Mostly we have opted for some support for the state.
Short-term goals.
Nothing has gone to the private sector to build a market economy which is self-sustaining. We are almost getting a space again, and this is different this time, that it's not only that we are frontline allies of the West, the regional countries are also aligned with us. Question is that can we this time develop this relationship, geopolitical and diplomatic, into basically reviving the real economy which is self-sustaining? Now, that's where the policymakers and power brokers and private sector leaders and international minds should be working in parallel in Pakistan. Deposits, any deposit which is taken, I am guilty in the way of negotiating these deposits in the first place in 2019.
When you're following the policy of the government.
No, but I was also advising the government that this should be a short-term bridging arrangement. You need to convert it into longer-term investments. Any deposit, Mariam, is taken on your diplomatic and geopolitical alliance can tomorrow get in a very high risk if diplomatic relation, which in these days is very easy to be shifted. So the risk of these deposits is high. We need to develop a real economy, but also try and shift some of these deposits into investments which are self-sustaining and taxpayers do not have to pay.
So my next question to you is about China. Do you think that the current crisis is hurting China currently? And do you think that if this persists and prolongs, will it hurt China in the longer run? And how China is a player or a party in the market or the global financial risks in this entire conflict between US and Iran?
Yeah, for that, we need to understand China a bit deeper. Few things. Some of the people thought that because of this crisis and the failure of multilateralism, perhaps China, being a regional giant, will take the leadership role and come into the forefront. China stays away from conflicts as a policy. Okay? China still is not ready to challenge the multilateralism. They can try and influence UN, but they will not come up with a parallel structure at this point in time. China does have multilateral banks like Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, but still they do not challenge directly the global financial system at this point in time. So looking at China as an alternate to the Western system perhaps is a bit premature. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, China consciously have been opening up regional markets through economic connectivity. And that's their longer term vision, that they have to bring down their dependence on West, because China is a production house which sells to the globe. But they want to diversify that risk. It will take time because China needs to understand development of various economies. They are also struggling risk. If an economy goes down, and we saw the example, Pakistan struggled to pay back their IPP, deposits, IPP profits and others. Now, China's economy is growing around 4.5% annualized, which has come down, but still it is higher than many countries in the world. And looking at the baseline, it's a good growth. China, in my opinion, will cautiously now, they will not take many risks. They will not make bigger investments in infrastructure. They will try and improve the domestic demand so that if they can't sell abroad, they can sell things, because it's a huge market.
It's a big market.
It's a 1.4 billion people living there. So China will remain strong, and China will indirectly keep on helping Iran in terms of technology acquisition, in terms of food security or something. But they are unlikely to come right on a head-on, collision. Now, Pakistan is uniquely placed here. We don't want to be seen as a proxy of China, but we can develop a regional partnerships using our relationship with China to do certain deals, which, in conclusion, I wanted to come to. But yes, China's economy will not be growing at the pace which one would have liked. But China's economy badly hurting. They have done strategic reserves of more than 100 days. They have better planning facilities. They have lots of things. I don't think China will go down as economy, but yes, they will not grow the way they would have liked.
So the Vision 2040 for China, so it is a little delayed.
China will make adjustments. China's, in the last Communist Party's meeting, their priorities are already shifting. The Belt and Road Initiative is not number one priority anymore. Settling down Taiwan is their number one priority. Investing more in technological, sustainability is one of their priorities. Building their defense using AI is another priority. So China is very pragmatically readjusting to the challenges. And I think the connectivity business will be delayed a bit.
So China is right now in the middle of getting benefits of the out of the liberal order. And I think China will continue to do so for a while.
Lots of middle powers are already reaching out to them.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best strategy, rather than China visibly expanding their influence. If people reach out to them for partnerships, I think that's the regional model I see emerging.
And it is more challenging for the world as well at the moment, because we have already shifted towards multipolarity to some extent. And the middle powers are adjusting to that new reality. So this is actually really important for us as a middle power, as a Pakistani. I would say that we shift to this new emerging challenges in a more wise manner.
More prudent manner, looking at hardcore evidence and realpolitik. And we need to build our capability to readjust ourselves in this changing world. It's a messy transition, unfortunately. It's not a smooth transition going on. It is destructive in many manners. But that is where the prudence Pakistan has done well on the diplomatic front. But Pakistan needs to strengthen its economic base. Otherwise, our bargaining power in the new order will not be strong enough to have a position.
How do you see that Pakistan can use this scenario as a window of opportunity to leverage itself economically?
Three, four things. Pakistan needs to rapidly and quickly change its mindset from a state-centric approach to a market-centric approach. It is the markets, they will do innovation, they will do exports, they will do expansion, they will build the base, which I said the real economy. So that's number one, my advice, that policymakers should give the leadership on economic matters to private sector. Second, Pakistan needs to create a space for world-class professionals to advise them on some of the major gains you can take out of their geopolitical positioning. For instance, we can bargain, in my personal opinion, if you put a professional case looking at sanctions to complete the Iran-Pakistan pipeline. If we do that, we don't only get an alternate source, but a cheaper source because of proximity.
Exactly.
Number three, Pakistan needs to look at one scenario that, let's say, in the medium term, one are short-term reactive scenario, जिसको हम कहते हैं hanging, low-hanging fruit. One are strategic, rebuilding the economy on solid grounds. If Iran opens up tomorrow, maybe certain trade sanctions are lifted. Pakistan can actually use Gwadar to reach out to Central Asia through Turkmenistan. And we should build on that because that infrastructure is already built. So Pakistan needs to strengthen our capability of ports for transshipment, for instance. By default, it's coming, but we need to tell the world it's not by default. We are ready for it, you know? So Gwadar to West Asia, Central Asia. Iran is a 100 million people market, an affluent market. If that opens up and we have good relationship, then they need everything from medicines to clothes to anything. So there could be our export destination in future, you know? So, but for that, our traditional way of working with few economies need to change. We have been dependent on few economies for exports. We have been dependent for oil imports to just GCC. It is time for Pakistan to diversify our regional presence in various markets and renegotiate certain trade deals with China because it's a big market. And at this point in time, the losses we get from GCC and others, perhaps that space can be opened up for Pakistan. At the end of the day, history will remember if Pakistan managed to use this opportunity for a people-centric economic policy.
बिल्कुल सही.
People matter, and we have lots of people.
Thank you for being here. और मैं आप सबसे इजाज़त चाहती हूँ. अल्लाह हाफ़िज़.